Good evening and welcome to our Monday, December 4th meeting of council. Call to order, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the December 4th, 2023 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7:02 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll rise for the singing of our national anthem. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move to approval of agenda. Are there any amendments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have one item that's been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda, that being item 10C, the RRCA draft 2024 budget.
Thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Approval of the previous minutes. Were there any errors or omissions noted? Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following minutes be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, November 20th, 2023. Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, November 27th, 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So we'll get into presentations and delegations. We have 3 presentations this evening. Typically we're about 10 minutes, but I imagine some will go a little longer. Just keep that in mind. So up first is 6A, Storm Internet Community Update. Mr. Foster. And also, just make sure you speak into the microphone and turn on with the central gray button, turn off the same way.
Okay. Hi, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate the opportunity to update you on what's going on with Storm Internet. And we have a clicker? No? She does, okay. Perfect. So the last year has been pretty busy for Storm. We've been building things out and improving services, and I get to tell you a little bit about it on behalf of the Storm team, so I appreciate the opportunity. And I don't know where I am, but there it is. So for those of you who didn't know who we are, we're now in our 27th year, actually. So it says more than 25, so I could use it forever. We've been in Chesterville since 2013, so we celebrate 10 years at Chesterville now. So we passed 10,000 customers, and we've got both residential and commercial solutions. There's Eric, who visited me, and we were talking about the area we cover in Eastern Ontario. So that actually goes from Sharbot Lake, which is just north of Kingston, all the way to North Lancaster and Baynesville. We actually provide business services. And it's interesting because different businesses want us to do different things. And so in the business of townships and municipalities, we have done things like the Brockville waterfront. We've done downtown Napanee, Barry ran a RFP, which we won, and we got to do the Horseshoe Bay there, plus all of the downtown for them. And it turns out it keeps people there a little bit longer, which means there's a little more sales tax flowing to them, and they really like that idea. We do manage Wi-Fi in buildings, so when you have bad access points and you'd like to improve it, some of our team know how to do the wireless survey and get that done. Lately, we've been doing some work with customers who wanted to buy domains, and they didn't realize we could actually do it. So we've been a registrar for probably 20 years and can get the domains that people need. Lots of new cameras this year, so that's going on. And of course, we're doing smart farms. And when we say smart farms, they kind of look like this. Oops, wrong way. That one. They kind of look like this. So we do a lot of dairy. So what it happens is we integrate the feeders, the milkers, the cameras, the tool shed, and of course the two houses. So we get all of that put together so people can actually have internet and all that. It's a private network, and we do that for them. We do grain bins so that people can monitor the moisture. In maple syrup, we are both monitoring for how full the stuff out in the back 40 is in terms of the pails and containers that they're collecting. And then lately, the last 2 years, we've been doing biodigesters, which there's a couple of different purposes for it, but one of them is to produce hydro. So we've also had to go through the same process we did when we did windmills and solar farms to hook up hydro so they could talk to it and understand what's coming off that. We also have, we've also been helping manufacturers, logistics, and events. You may know us for our events because we've done a lot with things like Dairy Fest and the plowing match. We just did the plowing match in Kempville last year. So one of the big things that everybody asks about is how can we get faster speeds? So part of our initiative this year was to look at what could we do for higher speeds. So as you'll find out as we walk through this, you got higher speeds here in North Lancaster. In fact, you were the experiment, just because it was easy to do. And overall, higher speeds basically get you better real estate prices, which doesn't hurt. And it also means that people and companies are more likely to locate in your area. And we're happy to talk about that. In some places, we're seeing mini nodes funded by counties, and then we can pay it back over 5 years. So if there's a real need for a mini node and you don't want to go through a local improvement initiative through the province, then perhaps that would be a way to get it done. But the local improvement initiative just adds it to the taxpayer's bill, but there has to be 70%. I think it's 66 2/3 exactly, support for it in an area by the property owners, and then it can actually get passed and get added to the tax bill over. They said over to 20 years, but I can't see that. I see 10 years being the right number, and it's a lien against the property, so you don't have to worry about it in your balancing of your budget. You just have to make sure you collect on it, which you will, because it's part of the tax bill. We added TV this year. So now we can provide streaming TV to people. They can see like hundreds of channels, more than I ever want to see. However, once we get to 500, we actually get to build our own channels. So maybe there's an F1 channel in the future. So you could watch F1 24/7. You know, you just never know. And that was easy to find. It was storm.ca/TV. So in North Lancaster, we added a tower on the municipal property. We pay rent to you guys. And that tower is linked with the tower in Baynesville. So we talk between the two towers. And when we go to build a tower, we do a propagation map, and it shows you what we think we're going to get based on the terrain and foliage. And you'll notice on the north side, off the North Lancaster Tower, that there's a dark spot. That's the dark spot where we need to put mini nodes so that we can connect those people too, because we do have some requests. One of our guys actually keeps track of what we call the dark stars. Those are the things where somebody asks for service. We still put them on the map, and they come up as a black star, and we check to see whether there's enough of them to make a business case to actually put something new in there to try and fix that spot. We did the same thing at Baynesville, so notice it goes down the St. Lawrence quite nicely. The North Lancaster Tower looks like that. The installation looks like that at the property, where there's a little dish that points towards the tower. And we really do deliver 50-10, except that now we're going to deliver 100 down and 20 up, just because we thought we should. And our investment on that was more than $750,000, and this year we got to add to that because it was a direct strike with lightning, and it wiped out about $38,000 worth of equipment, and so we had to replace it all. So there was a weekend where I actually personally called a bunch of people to try and help them understand that we're out, but we're working on it. We had spares. And the lightning arresters saved another $40,000. So we're happy that the lightning arresters did half the job. Anyway, that's what we're doing there. And what does speeds mean? Well, for most of you, you won't use much more than probably 10 megs per device at a max. I have a CFO who has 46 devices in his house, and he's never gone past 60 megs, just to give you an idea. So it's kind of one of those things. So I gave you the chart so you could look it up yourself. Anyway, businesses, speeds, we can always do business at 100 symmetrical or 500 symmetrical or whatever speed they need to do their business. And we're happy to configure it that way. Residents connect in what's called point to multipoint. Businesses connect in point to point, so they go from one point to the other, whereas the residents will connect so from their house to that tower, and there'll be an antenna that catches 90-degree angles. And we can put like 32 people on the same panel, and they get now here you're getting 100 down and 20 up, but you can also buy 50-10, or you can get 25-5, or whatever speed you really want, because we're pleased to do that, and we work with economic development officers if there's any specific requests, especially for business. We do a lot for tourism, as I mentioned earlier, Kempville Live, the Bose, when Bose runs its fall brewing, we actually provide the Wi-Fi for them. We do Hope Volleyball, we do Blues Fest. We also supply for people like Tomlinson. We actually have 10 of the LRT construction sites up in Ottawa. So if there's a construction site that needs it because people want to do time cards, updated as-built drawings, or they actually want to do something with cameras and occupational health and safety, we can provide all of that to a construction site. We did the 3M plant in Perth, as well as the one in Brockville. Interestingly enough, we have a lot of different options. Oh, and parts of St. Lawrence, we've done all of Upper Canada Village. Had to hide everything because, of course, in the 1860s, you didn't have Wi-Fi. So it's hidden, but it's there. And plowing match, I mentioned, lots of the ag stuff. In fact, at Chesterville, two of my team actually run the Chesterville Fair Board. So just to help out, because we're in the community and we take care of helping it. I'm busy with Rotary, so they took it on. Yeah, lots of different options. I don't need to spend any time on this, although we do have cable from Cogeco here, as well as DSL if you needed it, but we've also got all this wireless investment that we've done. This is the pricing we put out when we first put this in. So if you take a look at the low end, it was 10 down and 3 up. And then in consultation with our team and our customers, we decided that even though that was $75 and a nice low-end product, and the high end was 50-10, we decided that we would just do something, and boom, the price went down. I know it never happens, but it did. So the price actually went down. So your Velocity 10 is now 10 down and 5 up instead of 10 down and 3 up, and the price dropped by $10 a month. So we're trying to encourage people to pay attention to us, and we want to make sure that they're very happy with us. And on the high end, for $140 a month, you get 100 down and 20 up, and it's rock solid. The nice part is that we don't even have to change out the CPEs. It turns out with a software patch that we buy and put in, we're able to up the speed without, the only thing we have to do is climb the tower. And of course, if you're willing to climb the tower, no, just kidding. So we climbed the tower. We replaced four nodes, and they're all capable now of 100 down and 20 up. So if anybody is a resident and complains about speeds, it means they're hidden behind a tree someplace. So some closing ideas. In other counties, we've been put on the fire station antenna. Why? Well, because we don't interfere with the radio frequency, because we'll give the fire station internet, and in exchange for being able to be on their tower, and then we'll also be able to hit some houses that are in the area or businesses in the area. So if it's possible, I know you don't own a lot of infrastructure, because I remember looking for it when we were trying to do this in the first place, but if you do have any that make sense, if somebody would let us know, we'll have a chat with you. The other thing is, we got a bylaw passed in North Dundas. The bylaw says that anytime they replace a culvert, they have to put a 4-inch conduit right beside that. And the reason is because then we don't have to bore under the roads, because usually 3 or 4 years later, boring under the roads causes issues. So a little bump as you go through it. But if you're already ripping out the culvert, then putting a 4-inch conduit is a good idea. And the 4-inch, because then more than one person can use it. We're really looking to figure out, and my team is working on pricing for what it would cost to put a 4-inch conduit right down a paved area. And the reason is because you can rent that to us. And while you've got the road open, it's so easy to put it in. So, you know, it would be really nice to see that. And I know other telecommunications companies would rent it too, just because the hard part is digging to get that conduit in the first place. So then we can bring fiber everywhere, which would be really cool. Smart farms. If there's somebody here who knows the ag community really well, we'd like to get an introduction and spend some time chatting with them about what we've done. We've worked with DFA over in Chesterville, and that's worked well. We're a associate member of the OFA, Ontario Farmers Association, and we're happy to help out where we can. And grain legs really work well to extend our network, so you know that's helpful as well. And other than that, we're continuing serving residents and corporate clients, and we appreciate the opportunity to catch you up on what we're doing. So thanks very much. We appreciate all the help from Joanne and the rest of the team, and I'm glad to have been able to come here and visit. Any questions?
Well, I would just like to say, if you're looking for somebody who's with the GFA, I don't know if he's currently the treasurer, but at least he was at the last AGM. He's to my left, your right. So I don't know if Martin, you...
Okay. Well, we'll catch up then. Okay.
And also for maybe a smart syrup farm, because he's also put some recent updates into his farm. So that's a good person to talk to.
Yeah, chat with Peter. We'll get Peter Vanderlyn to call you if I can get some info. That would be great.
All right. Are there any questions or comments? Stephanie or Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you very much for coming again to give us an update on what Storm is doing and the progress you've made. And I guess I just want to make a general comment that, you know, 4 years ago, and now it's very nice that when folks ask for suggestions or options in our area, there are some now that there weren't before. So I think it's really encouraging to see the expansion that's happening. Unfortunately, I'm still in one of your dark zones. Personally, I know you've come out to check it, but I mean, that's okay, because I mean the map that you showed with the coverage, I mean that's a great step forward. So it's great for our residents to have options. So thank you, and thanks for bringing the information to us. I think it's a great way to get more people informed.
Yeah, and if there's a way that we can get a mini node that solves the problem, we'd be happy to do that too. So there's always an engineer that knows how to design a solution to this kind of thing. So thanks for the comments. I appreciate it. And Peter Vanderlyn does our smart farms, and Jason Reddick does the other pieces. Michelle is our VP of sales. So that's it.
Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks for the presentation, and I'd be happy to introduce you to the GFA, Glengarry Federation of Agriculture, and you can,
That'd be great.
I don't know, I guess I'm still the treasurer for now, but I have officially resigned, but they haven't had a meeting yet to replace me, so
Okay.
we'll see how it goes, but happy to do it.
Okay, appreciate that. You can drop me a
And,
note. I've given you the
I'll
card.
give you a
so
card.
that- Okay, great, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. And Kelly for facilitating this.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's good news. So then we will move on to presentation 6B, Karen View Park Concept, Think Design. And Sherilyn will do the introduction.
Okay, good evening, Council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So I have Mike here with us from Think Design. We've been working on the Karen View Park Concept Plan project, and you may recall we had our open house a couple weeks ago, and we did a online survey. So I will turn it over to Mike to present some options, and Council can provide their feedback at this time, and then Think Design will come back early in the new year for a more finalized plan.
Thank you, Sherilyn. So yes, my name is Mike Tucker. I'm a partner with Think Design. We're landscape architects and planners. And we were actually also involved in the Parks and Rec master plan that was recently completed. Is it that one? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Down instead of up. So the presentation agenda, I'm not going to read through all this, but I've got about a 10-minute presentation, just basically, as Sherilyn said, to give you an overview of what we've done to date and get your feedback at the end in terms of as we move forward to next steps. So project overview. So this project basically came out of the Parks and Rec master plan, and we're looking at creating a park at the municipally owned property at the end of Monument Way along the Raisin River in South Lancaster. So as I said, we want to give you an update on what we've done so far. And we've got a lot of community feedback that we've received through public meeting and survey. So I'm going to give you a brief summary on that. And at the end, then I'd very much like to hear council's thoughts on how we should move forward. And one thing I'll point out is that we're calling this a concept that we have so far. I really hesitate to call it that. It's really a very preliminary, high-level ideas. So what we're coming back with is something that's a lot more detailed and with costing and that sort of thing. So just so you know where we're going with it. So there are 7 tasks to this project. We've completed 1 through 3. So we started with a background review and site analysis, preliminary park design concept, and again, I hesitate to use the word concept, and then we had our open house and online survey, and a case, of course, today is the presentation to you. Following this meeting, we're going to get into then the refinement of the park concept, and then we're going to come back to you in January with the refined concept, and then we'll finalize it by the end of January. So very early on in the process, we met with the Raisin River Conservation Authority, Raisin Region Conservation Authority. And really, the importance there is because this site is in the floodplain. So we have to make sure that what we're doing is in compliance with the Conservation Authority. And we're showing the policy up there on the screen as well, just for reference. We really have to make sure that we're not impeding the flow of water when there's flooding. We also want to make sure that storage capacity is not impacted. So we've met with them at the beginning of the project. We've shared some preliminary ideas with them, and we're going to be doing this ongoing consultation with them as we move through the process. So this is some mapping that they provided, and we've have referenced so far. And the site is on the middle of those images, outlined in a cyan color. And basically, what you should gather from these images is that the site is very much in the floodplain, that based on the 2-year flooding, the site will, for the most part, be underwater. The only exception to that being, in the image on the far right, there's an area in blue. Within the middle of that blue, there's an area that's above that level. So otherwise, the site would be inundated with water during a flood event. So at the open house, we had that on November 8th at the Royal Canadian Legion. We had between 40 and 50 participants, and we provided a series of panels. We had 5 panels, and I'll show those in a moment. And 2 team members were at that session, myself and a colleague. And we were there basically to discuss the project, answer any questions, and get feedback. So we had asked people to either verbally provide feedback to us, or on the image there you can see we provided sticky notes, and they provided comments as well. So these are just the open house panels we provided. We had an introductory panel with a timeline schedule. We provided some images on the site itself in case people had not been to the site, although I would say that most people who came to the meeting, of course, were very familiar with it and were able to share their thoughts on the site. Provided this opportunities and challenges panel along with the information regarding flooding and from the Region Conservation Authority. We then provided this concept plan image, and I've got another image I'll show in a moment to talk to it. And then finally, again, the the comment panel, where they provided the written comments on Post-it notes. So this was the concept we showed, and again, I hesitate to call it a concept, but basically what we were showing is the possible programming and where things may land on the site. So basically, being very much a passive park, something, a lot of naturalization, opportunities for picnicking, and fishing spots, places for a lookout. We are showing a parking area in that high point, so I mentioned that there's one area that is above the 2-year flood zone, suggesting there might be a parking lot there, and then having that in close proximity to a small craft launch, so that would be for canoes and kayaks. And that's pretty much what we were proposing for that site, seating, picnicking, and walking basically being the amenities that would be provided. So again, because we can't put any larger structures, things like a more formal, large-scale boat launch just isn't feasible, partially because of the structure required, also because of the amount of parking that would be needed to support something with cars and trailers. So we know that was something that has been raised in the past, but we've opted to show a small craft launch just because it's more something that's going to be better chance of approvals from the Conservation Authority. So in addition to the open house, following that, we had this online survey that was open for about 2 weeks. And we had 6 questions that were focused on the types of activities residents would like to see, as well as their thoughts on the preliminary concept that we were showing. So we had 58 responses to the survey. I'm going to go through the questions and the results fairly quickly. And there's more detail there, obviously, that you can, if you haven't already, you can refer to. But the first question was, what waterfront activities do you currently participate in any waterfront park? And so the idea here was, unfortunately, was so people could pick as many options as possible. That was not set up properly, as many people pointed out. So they were good enough, at least in the other comment section, to provide a full list of what they would normally do in a waterfront park. So we got a lot of good feedback on that, but as you can imagine, it was a full range of things, mostly walking, nature appreciation, that sort of thing. A lot of fishing also. Survey results for questions 2 and 3, basically just asking about what they felt their use of the park would be. And obviously, for the most part, it was quite high or receptive to making this a more formal park. Question 4 was, what do you like about the park concept? And generally, people were positive about what was proposed in terms of the programming. So, of course, they mentioned better access to water, having walking trails and picnic areas, naturalized areas, a lot of comments about the proximity to their neighborhood and the community and the need for a park, and the need for parking as well. There were some negative comments. Some people felt that nothing was required, no improvements were necessary, that it was sufficient as it was. And I think there was a few people who said they didn't like the concept. Unfortunately, they didn't explain why or say. So I think it was just, comes down to, as you find, sometimes people just don't like change, as I'm sure council is fully aware of. So this is the, the next page is more detailed responses you can see that were received for that question. Question 5 was, what do you dislike about the park concept? And again, many people put nothing. They were happy with what was being shown, as basic and as high level as it was. But some of the dislikes that people mentioned was accessing the site. Of course, not happy that the site is in a flood zone and the limitations that come with that. Parking, I think, we heard this at the public open house as well, that mixed views on parking. Some people like the idea of having parking so they weren't on the street. Other people, of course, are a little hesitant about filling a park space with parking lot. The financial implications, of course, people aren't necessarily in favor of spending money on a park. And no play structure, that was something that many people pointed out, but again, we are restricted somewhat on what can be provided because of the flood zone. However, I think it all depends on how you define a play structure, so we can look at that further. Again, there's the more detailed results that you can look at your leisure. And then question 6 was, is there anything missing in the park concept you would like to see included? So there were a range of suggestions, and again, the children's play area idea came up again. Greater considerations for dogs. There were a number of people that liked the idea of maybe there being more amenities or opportunities for off-leash dogs, and in winter use. Ice fishing was one that was a common comment. And then the improvements to existing concept features. A lot of discussion on the boat launch again. Some of these based on, we didn't provide a lot of detail, so there was questions around, what would the boat launch look like? Is it just for canoes or kayaks? How big would the parking be, the configuration, that sort of thing. So again, these would be things that we would address in the refinement of the concept. So based on all that, we're looking to move forward now based on the feedback we received from the public and then anything we hear tonight. So moving forward, we're going to develop and refine the park concept, in particular with the small craft launch and the associated amenities with that. Looking more at winter use. So again, I mentioned ice fishing. The parking lot size. The location is somewhat given the flooding restraints, but the configuration of it, the size, that sort of thing. There's actually a little bit more space there than it first appeared to me anyway. So there is a bit of flexibility there. Maybe council has thoughts on how big a parking lot would be appropriate. Naturalization of the site. We heard loud and clear from the open house that very much the riparian buffer is important and they want to keep it. But we do want to provide some strategic openings to provide that physical access to the river for the boat launch or the small craft launch, but also just things like fishing or views of the water is important. But again, one thing we did here was about geese problems, and one of the best ways to manage geese is to make sure that the riparian buffer stays intact. And then ideas for further consideration, again, the children's playground. We'll need to talk to the Raisin Region Conservation Authority about that, what they would permit in terms of a children's playground. Many things, of course, we can do. We can do a more naturalized type of children's playground that isn't a conventional, traditional play structure, which probably would not be okay with them unless we provide it in the same spot that we want to provide a playground. And of course, you don't want to mix a playground and a parking lot necessarily together. So a bit of a competition there for space. And then again, the idea of dogs and dog walkers, and if there's anything there that can be done to appease those users. So again, next steps, we're going to advance and refine the concept. We're going to meet also with the Conservation Authority with the more detailed design, and then we're going to be back to this group in January to present the detailed concept, and then we're looking to finalize the project by the end of January. So thank you very much. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Sure. Any questions or comments? Start with Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks for the presentation. So I wasn't able to make it to the open house, and I'm glad to catch up on and read everything what people had said. I think you guys are on the right track. If we can find something to for kids, to entertain kids for a little bit of play, I think it would be great. Like, one of the big things about going to the park is let the kids get out and run around and this sort of thing. So hopefully there's a way to fit that in. I think we're on the right track. Thanks.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. First of all, I want to thank you and Ms. Servige for like all the work on this so far. Like, it was really heartening to see how many people came to the open house. There's lots of people, and I mean, I think considering, I think the number of responses is actually pretty good as well. So I think, and the quality of the feedback I think is excellent. So thank you very much for managing that process and for, getting the feedback from folks. So I think that was really well done. And in terms of maybe just to piggyback on what the deputy mayor said, I mean, I think if folks are going there fishing, I think a lot of kids are like me. They find fishing a little bit slow, so they want something to like jump around or something. So, I mean, I think that I did chat with the folks from the RCA who were there and explaining sort of the restrictions on what you can and can't do. But, probably even just if it's like a big boulders that kids can jump on and jump off, that might be enough just to sort of keep them entertained. But we do have to keep in mind that it's, it is a park with 3 sides being water. So it's also maybe not the best place to have kids running around. Sort of, we definitely want them supervised. But no, I think this is great. I think this is a great start, and thanks so much for putting all the effort in it so far. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to make a quick comment, just because I didn't pull it later on, but I just wanted to thank Ms. Servige specifically for the end-of-year update report on all the projects in your department. It was very instructive and very helpful, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. I also liked it too because I felt it appropriately modest. And I like the idea of like the passive playing because it was in AMO when I think we all went to the same place. I was sitting beside our warden Fraser, and we kind of looked at each other. And this the recycling place made a big park, and there's anything there because like kids will put shoes down for a soccer thing. So like the little green space is a lot to play on. But for those who like to run around and bounce, like rocks, I remember running as rocks. So I like that, and it even made me think of Strathcona Park a little bit. It's a path around water. Like it's that is it. So I liked that about this park. Because I think Lancaster on the north side of the tracks has more of the traditional one. So this is kind of nice to have that. And I think winter use is always a tough thing at parks. So I don't know how you bring that in without, like maybe you shovel paths. But like I think it was appropriate for the place, and I like that. So thank you very much for that part. Did you have anything else to add to Sherilyn or Ms. Servige?
Sorry, no, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any other comments, but if anyone does have comments, just send them through maybe within the next week. So then that way, whenever we come back in January, we'll make sure that we're referring to those whenever Mike's kind of finalizing the plan to bring back in January. So appreciate your comments tonight, but if you think of anything else, or we do have some council members that aren't here, we can certainly continue to receive some feedback.
If I may give one comment so I don't forget in between now and that time is the lookouts towards they would be north facing. There's a proposed subdivision there at one point, so I don't know if like that might be one where in the future, if that subdivision ever comes to fruition, you'd have a lookout or a fishing spot facing somebody's backyard. So perhaps that trenched area might like give some consideration to that. But thank you very much for your presentation. We enjoyed it. Thank you very much. The next presentation and delegation, 6C, 2023 OSIM summary, Jacobs Engineering. I believe they're coming online. And Ms. McDonald can start them off and introduce them.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to make sure that Michael can hear us. So we have Michael Matthews with us from Jacobs Engineering. Jacobs was retained through the SDG joint tender for our OSIMs this year with a bunch of other municipalities. And without any really further ado, I'm going to put the mic over here, and Michael, you should be up and ready to go.
Perfect. Let me know. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you just fine, thank you.
Perfect. One quick question I had was whether the slide presentation is up and visible to everybody in the room, because I do not see it on my end. So if you could confirm that that's the case, then we can walk through it that way.
It is now up, please proceed.
Okay, perfect. I'll depend on whoever's clicking the slides over. I'll let you know when to go, and I'll have them up on my screen. We'll do it in tandem. So, as introduced, thank you very much, Sarah. My name's Michael Matthews. I work for Jacobs Engineering, and our team carried out the biennial bridge inspections in a large group for the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, including the structures owned and maintained by South Glengarry. As many of you probably know, it's a provincial requirement to inspect all structures over 3 meters in span every 2 years, and that's part of the program that we carried out. So if I can ask us to flip to the next slide, that'd be great. The structure overview slide. In total, we inspected 68 structures for South Glengarry this year, 28 bridges and 42 culverts. And when I say culverts, I mean structural culverts that are over 3 meters in length or in span. Sorry, not small roadside ditch culverts. As part of the overall project, we carried out visual inspections. We produced an inspection report for every structure. We provided high-level cost estimates for recommended work to maintain and rehabilitate the infrastructure. We've produced a summary report that hopefully details it quicker than the many thousands of pages that are in those individual reports. And culminated with a recommended 10-year capital expenditure plan, or a proposed one that will help maintain the structures in good condition. So moving on to the next slide here, I'll get into a few of the details just to give everybody a summary of what has happened. So you should have on your screen the BCI and estimated remaining service life slide. So overall, before I start here, BCI is a Bridge Condition Index, which is a rating that has been developed by the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, which is given to every structure across all of Ontario. On average, many of the structures in South Glengarry were in good condition. There's one in excellent condition, which means it was recently replaced within a couple of years. About 40 of the structures were in good condition, 12 of them in fair condition, and then a decent chunk, 15, which are in poor condition and coming up on the end of their useful service life or in general poorer repair than the others. The other graph on this slide here is the average estimated remaining service life. It just gives a sense of where the infrastructure is in its lifetime, and as you can see, the majority of structures that are owned and maintained by South Glengarry are the end of their service life is between 0 and 30 years from now. So more on the getting older end than the new and replaced end. Next slide, please. Going to the 10-year capital cost slide. So what we've done as part of the assignment here is put together a rough plan, and this is a recommended plan, but it definitely has numbers that I know can sometimes be difficult to digest, but it is something that we want to present as our recommendations. So basically we cut up the recommended works into 4 different types. One is additional investigations that would inform the municipality on the condition of structures. Then there's general maintenance, which is always there, and then the big chunks, which are rehabilitations and replacements of infrastructure that is reaching the end of its service life and needs to either be replaced or have a major rehabilitation. What we've done in this in the proposed or recommended plan is distribute some of the most urgent needs and upcoming needs over the next 10 years in a relatively steady way, with some spikes being circulating around larger structures that may require replacement in the near future. One that jumps out here, and we did put a number of asterisks next to, is in 2024 here. We did in our recommended plan include a structure that should be replaced, but I believe is right now closed. So if that structure remains closed, it doesn't need to be replaced. But that the overall plan that we've laid out is in the summary report. I won't go into too many details right now unless there's questions afterwards. We can move on to the last slide here to just give a rough sense of where those cost outlays lie. And the big chunk of it is in full structural replacements, and this is replacing structures that are getting to the end of their service life, and it no longer makes financial sense to invest in rehabilitating them. That's about 13.8 million of the recommended capital plan. Then there's a couple major rehabilitation works in there, constituting about 3.4, and the rest being general maintenance and studies required to keep the infrastructure in good working order. So to keep it brief and relatively high level, those are all the slides that we want to share today. We do have the summary report on the side here, or at least I do, if we want to go through any details, but I want to open the floor to any questions, which should be the next slide, I suppose, from the council, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of them.
Thank you very much. Can we just bring them back up, because we don't need the questions slide if we can see them? Are there any questions around the table? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. My first question is for Ms. McDonald. The 2021 OSIM report had 50 structures, and this one has 68. So I was hoping you could just sort of talk through the additional, why this one has more, and also guessing on what your answer will be. I'm wondering also if there's additional structures out there as well that would weren't captured in this last go-around that could be seen on a future one. Thanks.
Excellent question, Councillor Jaworski, and through you, Mayor McDonald. Not all our structures were previously on a biannual basis. We had about 11 that were on an every 4-year basis. So in our last OSIM, it was in that in-between year. So we've added those 11. We've also had the one new one that we made last year that just narrowly made it in. So that brings us up to 12, and we added 6 in the peanut line. So that accounts for all of the additional ones. And to the follow-up question, I believe this is everything.
All right, Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you. I wasn't sure if Councillor Dwight, she said her first question, so I thought maybe there was like 5 or 6. Thank you very much for the report. I think it's not very good news as far as the financial end of it. And I mean, realistically, we cannot spend that money. So, I mean, we're going to have to do some real soul searching here and what we need to do and what we should do. I mean, $13.8 million over the next 10 years, almost 1.4 million a year. I think we're putting around a little over half a million a year aside. Is that correct? Less than that? So we're nowhere near where we need to be able to do this. And I don't think our budget is able to. But I think we do need to know what the situation we're in, and we need to be able to move forward, and we're going to have some real hard conversations, which I guess we knew was coming. So thanks for the report. I guess, there's no point burying our head in the sand. We might as well know where we stand.
Thank you. Councillor Jaworski?
I would.
Go ahead,
I
sorry.
would just respond to that quickly, saying this is a very common situation for many smaller municipalities, and we try to present the ideal infrastructure maintenance expenditure to keep things in very good working order, but with the knowledge that it's not often a reality, that kind of capital expenditure. So yes, the intent is very much to arm South Glengarry with the information to make the best choices possible over the next 10 years.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. So my next question is for Mr. Matthews, and I know it is answered in the report, but I thought it would be good to just have it mentioned here. Is in terms of the costing, like these dollar values that are used as estimates, these are all like as though we had to go and spend this money today, right? This is current dollars estimates.
This is 2023 dollars. Yes, we did not. Sorry, there is I believe, an inflation rate baked in somewhere, but it's not particularly big. I'd have to dig in and pull out the details from our detailed costing. But yes, this is, I think, on face value, is $2023.
Well, that's a fair question, because in doing some reading recently, I think in 2022 to 2023, the building construction, non-residential, went up 13%, and this year it's gone up 7%. That's 20 on non-residential, and I'm sure bridges and aggregates are even more than that. But it is the environment that we're faced. So if this was a 2019 number, it would be insufficient at best. I have an anecdotal story. I had Gary McDonald, our drainage superintendent, told me of a story, and I don't know, as an engineer, you might not be able to say anything about this, but there was a culvert near one of our old schools. I believe it was in the third concession, maybe fourth. And in 1998, it was tendered to fail, and he paid $4,000 and had a welder in there. And I mean, it's 25 years later, and that culvert is still standing strong. Do any of those types of like low-cost things go in, or do we normally look at the large expenditures? Because as you noted, like, we're a small municipality. Money doesn't come from the province since the 1970s for bridges, really. So it's 50 years. They're all coming due, and culverts in particular is one that maybe not noted so much on here because you're doing 3-meter spans. But have you heard of any inventive things where you can bring somebody to, in an engineering world, approve it, or is that just kind of a one-off 1990s solution?
So the solution that you mean, somebody went into a standard metal corrugated steel pipe culvert and did some welding repairs? Is that the?
Yeah, just an idea of like, is there stories of that can work on a bigger bridge? And maybe it's not a fair question. It's just it was a recent story, and I thought it just wonderful to hear.
So. What I would say is there are minor rehabilitation methods that can work well, and I think a big chunk of the asset mix that you have are structural culverts, and many of them are that type, the corrugated steel plate type culvert, and there are weld repairs that can be done. The longevity of those, I think, is very situational. So it's case-by-case basis, and there's probably some low-cost repairs that can be done on a lot of the infrastructure that you have, but the extent of service life becomes debatable.
Well, that's a fair and measured answer. Thank you very much for that. And it seems to me that we were previously, not too long ago, targeting $620,000 as a transfer to reserve. And I do like, as Deputy Mayor Lang said, we can't have our head in the sands, dug in the sand. We have to know the numbers. So I appreciate the numbers coming more honestly and forthright. But I mean, looking at that schedule, your $2.2 million would be a contribution to reserve to do that. And I don't think our budget can have it. So there are tough decisions, and better to have that information up front and start with it than to find it out later. So thank you, and thank you for including the peanut line. That's also good because there's major structures there too. All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. You'll probably be staying around for the next staff report, I imagine, because it's about this.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have a good evening. So we will move to action request 7A, 2023 OSIM report acceptance, bridges and structures culverts. Ms. McDonald, and I'll read the resolution before. Moved by Council Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang, be it resolved that staff report 135, 2023 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry receive and accept the 2023 Ontario Structural Inspection Manual, OSIM, summary report detailing the current condition of the municipality's bridges and structural culverts. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, pretty straightforward ask, and my staff report includes a summary report completed for the 2023 OSIM inspections, which, well, the presentation was just, this is the township as a whole. The summary report does split things up into roads versus the rec structures, so it gives a sense of what's going on, and it does give the capital plan and names the bridges that would be coming due. I wanted to point out in my staff report, note number 9, which talks about the 3 bridges that have the planning study recommended. So Grays Creek at Purcell, Sutherland at Roy's, and Sutherland at South Service Road. This would be a similar planning study to what we did for the Butternut Lane Bridge this year. So it's an options and a renewal analysis. And just pointing out, and that kind of falls through the question, what are there things that we can do that are innovative or different or not replaced for like? So if that's our question, then this is the study that we do to determine that answer. If we just go in and ask an engineer, we want to replace this, they're likely going to give us a like for like or very similar type of thing. So if we want to be innovative or check out other things, then that's what we're looking for. And you'll note the dates on those 3 studies would all be in 2025 if we were to follow the capital plan as presented. I also wanted to highlight the maintenance needs of our bridges, which was quite high. When I read it as a general manager of infrastructure, I was a little bit worried because it's the 0.7 in my report, excuse me. Like it has in 1 year expending $160,000 in maintenance on our roads, bridges, 2 year $330,000 in maintenance, which is not something we've previously done. And I believe that's bigger maintenance, not little maintenance. So moving forward, we could look at starting to build up a small maintenance budget for our bridges and start tackling things like the embankments and keeping our slopes and stabilization up and running, cutting back the vegetation that we see overgrowing and just kind of cleaning out the channel underneath. We do have 61 road bridges, which is extreme, but when we look at the impact of not maintaining them, like our bridges will age faster if we don't do it. I'm not saying that we need to do that now, but just something to think about. When I was looking at my budget and talking to the crews, it's been a few years since we washed our bridges, and washing bridges gets the salt off and kind of helps keep things from corroding. So just little things like that might help us extend some of these structures a bit beyond what we're seeing in the capital plan. No promises, but we might be able to get a few more years out of a few more structures. Anyhow, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. I might have a bit more context in a local sense than Jacobs did, but I'm pretty confident in their numbers, and I know the counties have been very happy with the numbers that have been coming out of Jacobs. So that really big $27 million number is probably pretty close. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks, Ms. McDonald. I do agree with it, like the maintenance thing. We need to kind of start doing something. There's a couple of things in there that there was maintenance recommended for a bridge that's supposed to be changed this year. I don't understand why we would have to do maintenance on a bridge that's brand new, you know, like in year one. But anyway, I don't know what, it was only $3,000, but it just seemed a little odd. But I do think we should be keeping our brush back, especially I think trees and tree roots and stuff are not good for any kind of structure, any kind of, you know, foundation. One little thing, just a typo at the end of the executive summary, they're calling us North Glengarry instead of South Glengarry. Maybe should be changed just on the last line of the thing. But overall, it was very interesting reading, very scary when you think about, you know, kind of leaves you with a little bit of a worry when you think that we do not have the money to do this, but we need to start talking about it and figuring out exactly how we're going to deal with this, because we can't just start closing all these roads. So we don't want to wait till too long. We have to start on this now.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I did want to just touch on the item that Ms. McDonald raised about the ones that we should probably do a planning study. I mean, I'm wholeheartedly in support of that, because particularly one of those, I think it says like it's $3.2 million worth of replacement cost. So I think, yeah, we need to be creative. We need to, I think you said it very well about that we always want to do like for like, or in some cases, or not, or in some cases something else, you know, an acceptable solution. So I just want to express my my support for that approach going forward. Thanks.
Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. So, Councillor Jaworski, the structure that you mentioned about being 3 whatever million, I think that was in Sutherland at South Service. Yeah, so that is an excellent example of maintenance, knowing what's going on. That is a bridge where I believe why it's failing is that salt has gotten through the expansion joints down to the girders, and the girders or the bearings, no, I think it's the bearings are failing. I went back through a number of studies, and we knew this like 12 years ago, that this was happening. So just like that proactive maintenance, I'm not saying it would have, because we have already seen corrosion down there, but like when a key component to a bridge starts to fail, like a bearing, that's bad. Where if it had just been the expansion joint, we can like do something about that. So I don't really know why I'm saying that, just that was one in my head that I'm like, oh, if we had just, you know, done something, and maybe we did do something and it wasn't enough. It's hard to tell, but just if we can just do a bit more maintenance, that would be wonderful. And to Deputy Mayor Lang's comment about, is there anything else we can do, or maybe it was Mayor McDonald's, that's more innovative. Some of these bridges they have recommended, and then the steel culverts, going through and paving the bottom of them where the bottoms have rusted out. So there were a couple where they've looked at like the low costs where we don't have to change the full culvert, but if we can go in and pave for a bit, we might get a few more extra years. So they did look at some of those lower cost solutions. Just when you look at that lifespan, we're like 30 years or less for a lot of things. And when you get to end of life, you're kind of limping along. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'll agree with Councillor Jaworski as far as the studying these, especially these three, but I want to know what it's going to cost. I don't want to spend crazy amounts of money studying them when we know a lot of things that we need to be doing. But if the study is a reasonable price, that can maybe save us, you know, so I don't want to go too far. You mentioned Sutherland Creek at South Service Road, so just I had talked to our drainage superintendent about that structure, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago, just because the beavers had been damming underneath it. Anyway, and it just jogged my memory that the fellow that originally notified us told me that they're back. So just a heads up that they're back. Maybe if you're talking to Mr. McDonald, the beavers are under the bridge again, starting to block it up.
And I forgot to mention or ask the question. I'd be curious, and this is just because would this be the first time we've done that joint tender for OSIM with all the other municipalities, or has that happened before? Maybe I'm not aware.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to my knowledge, this is the first time that we have tendered with the counties. Historically, we've gone with McIntosh Perry, it seems, or Taunton Sims before that.
Oh, I should have asked him how much was saved kind of by doing it in bulk, if there was any savings, because that'd be wonderful to kind of know that like working together saves money, but question for another time. Any further questions of council? All right. All those in favor of the motion as read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will be getting into bylaws. 8A, Banesville Shared Well Agreement. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 136, 2023 be received, and Bylaw 80, 2023 being a bylaw to enter into agreement with Eric Taylor and Shanti Calfun regarding the shared well location at 21479 McQuaig Drive, Banesville. Be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of December, 2023. Ms. Servidge.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a report regarding the well at Jack Danaher Park that is located at the adjacent property. So we were made aware of that earlier this year, and the current property owner, well, the new owners took possession on December 1st, but the property owner at the time had requested that we enter into a formal agreement with the township with regards to the well. So we did some research, and it was decided to enter into a licensed agreement, so it is tied to the homeowner and not necessarily the property, so we don't have to go through an easement agreement. So we are looking to enter into this licensed agreement, which would just be for the short term, as outlined in the report, until such a time that the township installs a well on our own property at Jack Danaher Park. And then at that point, we would be providing the 3 months notice to the property owner, and they would obtain their own connection, power connection to the well. And I have reviewed some of this with the new property owners as well, so they're aware of the agreement.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of council? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Servidge. So items for consideration. Is there moved by Deputy Mayor Lang? I believe we talked about them, and I saw head shakes last time from you. So this one is the notice of motion Enbridge gas support. Can I put you as a seconder, Councillor Jaworski? Deputy Mayor Lang, if you wanted to speak to it, or
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We discussed this last time, and I think I'm fine. If there's any more questions?
no, sorry, I kept my mic on. It's a long motion. I was like, do I have to read this? So here we go. Should have read it first. So we had the seconder. Whereas Enbridge has shared with the Township of South Glengarry key messages regarding the Ontario Energy Board's Leave to Construct LTC process entitled Reducing Red Tape for More Cost-Effective Timely Energy Connections in Ontario, and whereas the Township of South Glengarry supports and wishes to endorse the recommendations put forward by Enbridge in order to expedite the installation of natural gas to rural, remote, and underserved communities, such as the Township of South Glengarry, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of South Glengarry petition the Ontario government to expedite the implementation of the following recommendations. 1. That the Government of Ontario move to modernize the Ontario Energy Board's OEB's Leave to Construct LTC process for smaller pipeline projects in order to bring reliable, affordable energy options to communities, homes, and businesses in a more cost-effective and timely manner. 2. And that the LTC cost threshold be updated from $2 million to $10 million for hydrocarbon lines by amending Ontario Regulation OREG 32803 while maintaining current requirements and expectations for Indigenous consultation and environmental review for projects greater than $2 million and less than $10 million. 3, and that these outdated regulations are causing the LTC to apply far more broadly than intended when it was established over 20 years ago due to increased regulatory and cost pressures. As well as inflation, virtually all gas pipeline projects are now greater than $2 million, rendering the threshold meaningless. 4, and that roughly 0.5-kilometer pipeline in urban settings now often exceeds the $2 million threshold. 5, and that modernizing these outdated regulations would reduce delays and costs for economic development initiatives, including transit projects, community expansion projects, housing developments, connections for low-carbon fuel blending, example, renewable natural gas, hydrogen, as well as residential and consumer connections. 6, and that based on the OEB's performance standards, this proposal would save approximately 5 to 7 months of regulatory process, which is in addition to the time needed to undertake Indigenous consultation and environmental review and preparation, or to prepare an application to the OEB. 7, and that the cost of preparing and having an LTC application heard ranges from approximately $50,000 to $200,000, which is passed on to the customers. 8, and that while no cost-based threshold exists for electricity lines, there are a range of exemptions during or ensuring that LTC is only required for significant electricity projects, and the proposed change would help ensure that consistent with electricity projects, LTC for hydrocarbon lines would only be required for significant projects. 9, and that increasing the cost threshold to $10 million would closer align Ontario with other Canadian jurisdictions. And furthermore, that this resolution be circulated to the President of AMO, Premier Doug Ford, the Ministry of Energy, the Minister of Finance, and MPP Nolan Quinn, requesting support for the proposed changes regarding red tape for more cost-effective, timely energy connections in Ontario. All those in support of the motion as read? Seeing none opposed, carried. We will move to 9B, notice of motion support for tax credit for firefighters. I guess I should read it first, so can I get a seconder? Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby supports the resolution passed by the Municipality of Wawa and calls upon the Government of Canada to support Bill C-310 and enact amendments to subsections 118062, 118072 of the Income Tax Act in order to increase the amount of tax credits for volunteer firefighters and search and rescue volunteer services from $3,000 to $10,000, and furthermore that a copy of this resolution be shared with the Association of Fire Chiefs of Ontario, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, MP Eric Duncan, and the Municipality of Wawa. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No further comments. It's the same as last week or last council meeting.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. I believe we are taking out from the consent agenda item 10C. Was that probably Councillor Jaworski in this case, or no? Deputy Mayor Lang. Deputy Mayor Lang, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I just brought it forward just to make people aware that the draft budget from the Conservation Authority is here. It's new legislation from Ontario that we have to circulate it for 30 days before we pass it. I guess in the past it was just passed and a bill was sent to the townships, but now we have to make sure the townships are aware of it ahead of time, the public's aware of it, and anybody can make comments up until, and then we'll pass it likely sometime in January. So if anybody has any concerns or questions, feel free to get hold of the Conservation Authority, talk to either the mayor or myself. We're both on the board. And just for interest's sake, they're looking at 3.38% increase over last year.
Any questions furthermore? Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I believe in 2021, when this council reacted to COVID by lessening the budget pressures here, the RRCA also responded in kind, so they do hold their budget pretty tight. All right, consent agenda moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Carried. We will now be going into closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that council convene to closed session pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. 2, a meeting or a part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, specifically staffing matter, litigation or potential litigation, specifically litigation, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on by the municipality, specifically instructions for negotiations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will go into closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that council rising and reconvene at 9:34 PM into open session without reporting. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that administration be directed to carry out all actions as specified in the closed session minutes. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that bylaw 81, 2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of December 2023. All those in favor? Carried. I know it's new to December, but I almost said October there. I went back a month. Cheapers. So adjournment, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 9:35. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Have a good evening, everyone.